Oh well. Um, Hello everyone, and welcome essentially back to the Ring of Fire, but to a new incarnation of the Ring of Fire, Next Gen, where me and my co-host Skeletroy um, are going to talk about NXT every week. Well, if we can manage it, we'll be talking about it every week. If not, every other week. Um, so as far as this goes, I figured we'd just open it up with our experience with NXT up to now. So I'll let you go first, Troy.
Okay. My experience is basically I got WWE Network in January, like the first week of January. Um, Fell in love with NXT and have been addicted to it ever since. Um, I love the old school feel of it,
Yeah.
combined with like the new school wrestling style.
Mm.
Um, it just makes such a neat, complete package that it's hard not to find compelling.
Mm.
Especially as like if anybody's watched any of the other podcasts I've been on where I've talked about wrestling, like the 999 podcast or whatever. Um, I was a fan of ECW back in the day, and I get very much an ECW vibe from NXT. Where, I mean, a lot of people look back and just think of them as, the hardcore guys, because, I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the label they got, but they had fantastic technical wrestlers.
Oh yeah.
So it's nice to see a bit of everything. Like you
Mm.
get uh, just to name some of the current roster right now, you get some really good technical wrestlers like Hideo Itami or, Sami Zayn or Tyler Breeze. And then you
Mm.
get, these big brawlers like Bull Dempsey or Kevin Owens or Baron Corbin.
Mm.
That all three of them would fit very well into the old school ECW roster.
Yeah.
But then they also have a fantastic women's division. So it's
Mm.
NXT is giving me everything that I want as a wrestling fan who kind of got jaded and is now back after 14 years.
Oh yeah. Trust me, it's won me over, and I've been like jaded on main roster WWE for a while.
Well,
Um,
that's not really tough. It took me like 2 months to get back to that point.
mm, uh, as far as my experience with NXT goes, I've pretty much been on and off watching it since it was essentially a replacement for Tough Enough that had its own show. Um,
Yeah, they've been showing,
because,
like, they put the first 2 seasons of that on the network, and I kind of marathoned them over the past week. Um,
Mm.
I mean, I'll be honest, I hate reality TV,
Mm.
but WWE shows, except for Legends House, do them really well.
Mm.
Because I mean, it's not just about, these guys living in this house. It's people getting the shit beat out of them trying to become professional wrestlers. And
Right.
that's really cool.
Mm.
So
Um,
I dug Tough Enough.
yeah. With NX, yeah, like originally it was basically that they take guys from their developmental territory, sort of like they essentially did with Tough Enough, from what I can gather. Um, they'd like give them all hype videos and stuff, and use FCW footage so they had something to actually show. And they basically like compete every week, and one would be voted out, and the winner of the first one was Wade Barrett, and that one. The irony was that pretty much everyone from that season ended up on the main roster for a while anyway, due to the Nexus angle.
Oh yeah, the whole Nexus.
Yeah. Season 2. Oh fuck. What was? Oh god, I can't even remember who won that. Let's see. Oh well. If anyone that ends up watching this knows, remind me. And the third one was a Divas only one, and Caitlyn won that, which pissed a lot of people off at the time because she'd only been in FCW for like 6 weeks or something like that. She had like little to no experience. But they just kind of threw her on there because one woman they had on there had, it turns out, it had gotten out that she'd been in porn or something like that. Apparently that was bullshit, or I don't know. But generally they let her go and then pulled Caitlyn up, and even apparently she was like, whoa, really? You probably could have picked someone else. And then Caitlyn ended up winning over AJ. Because this was our introduction to AJ Lee, was this season of NXT, and Naomi. She was from this as well. So Naomi's like the only one left from that season, I think, because they hired a few other women from that, but Naomi's the only one left. Just like I think the Miz is the only tough enough winner left, tough enough sort of contestant left. Especially after Josh Matthews left years ago, even though he was just an announcer.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see him. Because I mean, like, I'd known about him as an announcer, but then, you know, like watching Tough Enough, and I got Wikipedia open at the same time, and it's like, oh fuck, that's him? Maybe I should try out for Tough Enough.
The funny thing is he actually has, not to go off on a tangent too much, but he actually has like 1 or 2 wins over JBL due to a tag match that happened once.
Yeah.
Oh, like a tag match and a one-on-one match that happened in like 2004 or something. So he's got that to him. He's pinned a WWE champion. Let's see. I think they did like one more version of this, and it was called NXT Redemption, where it was a bunch of... Johnny Curtis was, I think, in the second season. Okay, yeah. Curtis Axel must have won the second one. It was either him or Johnny Curtis. Might have been Johnny Curtis, who people know now as Fandango.
Okay.
Because that was funny. He did not really debut. He kind of debuted, got squashed by Mark Henry, and then kind of disappeared to main event and superstars, and then got repackaged after an NXT run. Because yeah, basically, after a while they decided, fuck it, we're going to rebrand FCW as NXT, and so now it's pretty much not representative of everyone they're training, but you know. Now, instead of FCW just having some local TV kind of deal in Florida, now they have a freaking global audience due to the WWE Network, so that's really cool. I actually remember, I'm only really going to bring this up briefly, but I remember that the first episode of this incarnation was kind of annoyed me because they tried to cram way too much into it. They only had an hour. They did 6 really short, not really good matches in that 1 hour, plus interviews, plus segments, and it's like, wow. No. Luckily, as we get to now, they've come down on that a bit. So, as far as this episode goes, we're talking about...
most of the time, this one in particular, not so much. This was a pretty packed episode.
Yeah, I counted like, let's see, one, two, three,
5 matches.
four, yeah, 5 matches, plus like 2 or 3 segments. Um, so first off, the show pretty much starts out with Rhino defeating someone in like 10 seconds, and I basically just wrote it down as Rhino defeated someone who seemed to be Ty Dillinger, but apparently wasn't. Because he was dressed like Ty Dillinger, and he kind of looked like Ty Dillinger, but they never name him, so either he was and they didn't want to bring attention to that because he wrestled later, or I don't know what, but for whatever reason, they were wearing his tights, so I figured it was, but apparently not, I guess. I don't know. It was really weird. And
Yeah.
it's kind of weird to see Rhino actually get to squash someone in anything WWE related, considering he was only ever really a mid-carder to them. Um, no real thoughts on this because it was just like 5 seconds.
Yeah, it kind of happened too fast to have any thoughts on it.
uh,
I guess quick story I have about it is like I had this on while I was working. For those of you who don't know, I work from home. That's really as far as we need to get into it. It's not porn. Um, but yeah, I had NXT on in the background, and I saw that Rhino was on, and I was just doing my work and whatnot, and I glanced over, and I was like, did I? Did I? How did I miss that? Because he was celebrating already, and it's like, what the fuck? So I watched it again, and yeah, it's like a 10-second match where they only call the other guy his opponent.
Yeah. Which is weird because in some, even if it's just a random NXT guy that isn't really on the televised roster yet, they usually name them. Like with some of the guys that Baron Corbin has gone through. Really, all I've got to say is that I fucking love Rhino's WWE theme. Uh, like as long as I can hear it, I'm satisfied. So yeah, because this is the one he used after the Attitude Era. So I fucking love this theme. Anyway, uh, then we got pretty much this segment with Sami Zayn, from what I recall, where he came out and basically said that he was still gunning for Owens, and I forget exactly when it happened, because
Yeah,
I don't
that
think.
was before the Rhino match.
Okay, because I keep
He
forgetting what order they happened in, because I didn't write that down. But I think, considering, I forget when it happens, but I'm just going to bring it up now. We get like a brief interview where Finn Balor is trying to give an interview, and then Rhino interrupts him and basically tells him that he's maybe that was last week and then just overlapping because I've like marathoned NXT to catch up over
Yeah,
the past couple
that
of
was
days. But
later
yeah.
on in the show.
Mm.
The one this week was Rhino. It was Sami Zayn was doing a backstage promo,
Ah.
and Rhino came in. And he's just like, "You're behind the line. The line starts here."
Which, my God, I actually can't wait to see if they actually go ahead with that and have Rhino versus Owens. That would be pretty cool.
I'm actually looking forward to that. I think that would be a really good match, just considering how much of a monster they've built Owens up as.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, he's definitely a believable monster, not
Mm.
like Brockzilla.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's kind of like uh, kind of this a similar logic to something that Kevin Nash used to explain why he thought him and The Undertaker could have good matches, where it's not two big guys kind of lumbering around hitting each other. Nash could actually throw Undertaker around. In this case, Rhino could believably throw Owens around because Owens is quite light-footed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, like, it could be just me, but Rhino's looking as good, if not better, than he ever has.
Oh yeah, he's really stayed in shape.
Like,
Um,
I don't know, it's weird just seeing, some wrestlers just go to absolute shit, and seeing some guys like Rhino or Billy Gunn who look like they're in the best shape of their life.
yeah. Um, anyway, the next match, from what I recall, was Bayley versus Emma.
Yeah.
Um, and from what I can recall, this was fairly short, and Emma actually kind of dominated most of it. And the story behind this is that Emma's basically been slowly turning heel since coming back to NXT, and seeming sort of jaded, which I kind of like that they're doing that. They're like flat out admitting that they didn't really use Emma all that well, and just part of her character is that she's not like playing up. Ooh, I've been on the main roster. Like in one interview, in one like segment with Bayley a week or two ago, she just flat out tells her like, yeah, you're like nice and you hug everyone and that, but look where that got me. Like I just got treated as a comedy act on Raw, so you better drop that or you're not going to last very long.
Yeah, that was
Um,
last week, and then she slapped her in the face.
um, and yeah, so in this one, Bayley ends up managing to get a win by reversing basically a really cocky cover into a sunset flip. And Emma's just kind of like, yeah, it's like after the win, Emma just kind of doesn't leave. Like I thought they were going to do something there, like she was going to attack Bayley, or like they're probably saving that for like this coming week, or
Yeah,
something like
building it
that.
up or
But
something.
yeah, but like she's just there and she looks so bloody disappointed. I'm like, oh, I know I'm supposed to hate her, but like I just can't. She looks so disappointed.
So, like, what's Emma's gimmick? Because I'm really not familiar with her.
Um, well, up till pretty
Because, I
much
mean,
now.
like, I know she does, like, the weird dancing thing, and then this week she came out and it was kind of like she was making fun of that.
Well,
So,
yeah, I
like,
think that's part of.
what is that all about?
Hmm. From what I can tell, that's basically just because they're making her jaded now. Because like originally, it's basically she just had a stupid dance gimmick that got way over. Like I don't think it would have. I never thought it was gonna last. But they basically had her do that dance gimmick where she just does this stupid dance, and that's basically about it. She's all about. Think it's kind of like Bayley in a way, but not as fangirly. Um, and
Okay,
just she
just
was
because I mean,
basically
like, I haven't
yeah.
seen her on NXT in the past 3 months, so I mean,
Mm,
like, all I've really seen her is, like the commercial that they'll play on the network
mm. Yeah,
where
because she
she
got
dances for two
yeah.
seconds. So, I just didn't really know anything about her going into this match.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like, that's kind of good because new blood's always a good thing.
Oh yeah, because like she's had this gimmick for about a year, I think. Because yeah, she was on uh the first NXT event, special event, NXT Arrival last year, and she faced Paige in what was a pretty amazing match. Um,
Yeah, I
and
gotta
then
go
like
back and watch that.
and then sometime she was within the last year she was called up and has had a few brief comebacks to NXT, but now I think she's pretty much sort of not necessarily there to stay, but by the looks of it, they're like, okay, yeah, we need to build you back up again. So,
Well, is
Um,
is anybody there to stay really?
mm,
I mean, just,
well,
pulling the rug out from under you, like the next match was Blake and Murphy against the Lucha Dragons. And it's
well,
like,
yeah.
didn't I see them 2 days ago on Raw? They must
Well,
be
I
getting some
guess.
fucking air miles.
Well, I guess to be
It's like,
fair.
okay, you're here on
Um,
NXT this week. Okay, now 2 days later you're on Superstars. And,
mm,
like 2 weeks later you're on Raw. And then 2 days later you're on NXT. Make up
mm,
your fucking mind, guys. Like, they're good no matter where you put them. Just put them in one or the other.
well, right. From what I can tell, when they've called guys up before, they usually hang around for like a few more weeks on NXT and then finally move on. Unlike Adrian Neville, who just kind of will probably disappear randomly, I guess. The annoying thing is, though, that NXT is pre-taped weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. I'm pretty sure they do like 5 in a row or something like that. Like
Okay.
one, like they'll basically dedicate an entire day to doing like a week's, like to doing like a month's worth or so of NXT, which is why when they did the Arnie Classic thing, somehow miraculously, Enzo Amore had a different colored beard than he had a week ago, and then went back to having the blonde beard. So it's like, well, wait a minute, what the hell? Bit of a continuity error there. There was a few continuity errors, I think. So I basically take it as that happened before they'd done done a certain amount of tapings. But anyway, um, I just really hope that this Emma thing goes somewhere. And generally, I like that they're essentially slowly dropping that dance gimmick because I fucking hated it. I like that it was getting over, and generally she was getting over, but it's like really, as long as it's not I think originally I just was like, well, at least it's not an Australian stereotype gimmick.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that I've found from watching NXT in the first place is like these guys don't really need gimmicks. Like, they sold me
Mm,
on good wrestling.
yeah.
So
Um.
if you want to have like some silly like cartoon characters, put them on the main roster where you're trying to, cater to the PG crowd.
Mm,
I want to watch people competing, and this is where I
right.
get it. So,
Mm. So I guess the funny thing is they've had Rusev through NXT, and also there was a character, Sylvester Lefort, who was apparently the only actual like current day Frenchman that they've actually hired who's actually from France instead of doing what they did like like 10 years ago where they just hire someone who's French Canadian and pass them off as French. Um, but yeah, anyway, moving on. The next match was it for the tag titles? Because I forget. I don't think it was.
I don't
It
believe it
was
was, no.
no, yeah, but it was still So it was a non-title match between the Lucha Dragons and Wesley Blake and Buddy Murphy, and I really like that for the most part they don't have, or at least they didn't seem to at first anyway, have Blake and Murphy really use heel tactics unless they absolutely had to. Because even though they heal and they're actually sort of more establishing that they heal, um, it makes sense, but I don't even think they used heel tactics to win this match. I could be wrong. I think it was more of they managed to use a bit of trickery, but not really anything illegal to manage to get the win. Um, but generally they did win, and I'm kind of glad because I figured, considering before they won the tag belts, they were basically a jobber tag team for the most part. Then they got like a shock win out of nowhere, and then pretty much the next week or week after, they became tag champions. So it's
And
like,
like that's a crazy thing is, like just because of when I came in, I didn't know any of that. Like, to me, they seemed like a really good tag team from the moment I started watching, and to be honest, I've been behind them the whole time ever since they've gotten the belts. I
Oh
think they're a
yeah.
really good tag team.
Mm.
So hopefully, this is signs of things to come. I mean, I love tag team wrestling. There's
Yeah.
things
Same.
you can do with a team that you just can't do by yourself.
Right.
And well, I think it was Blake and Murphy a couple weeks ago. They did this move where they both threw a guy in the air, and then like I think they came like with a knee on him or something. I don't really remember, but they threw him like really fucking high in the air. They might have just let him drop. I don't remember.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I forget. Yeah, and generally I kind of like their combination sort of finish where it's like the brain buster followed by a frog splash. Because like generally I kind of have a soft spot for that where like one guy will hit the ground move and the other guy will follow it up with an aerial finisher. Especially because Blake can get some friggin' distance too. Because like it wouldn't have been this week, but in a previous week he soared like 3/4 of the way diagonally across the ring to hit that frog splash, and I was like,
oh
"Holy
wow.
shit!" Um, so
So
I'm just
is
like,
it normally I'm sorry, you said that it was normally a brain buster? Because this week he did like a running suplex.
yeah, well, I guess
Or
in a way
same
it's
difference kind of
yeah,
thing.
really, kind of. The funny thing is, if you go to Japan, a normal vertical suplex is a brain buster, and what we know as a brain buster is a sheer drop brain buster. So really, it's up to interpretation. Um, yeah, I really hope that since these guys actually Wesley Blake and Buddy Murphy before they even won, it was more of at first they just kind of jobbed out like they got squashed by the Ascension. And I think back then they weren't even a proper tag team yet, so they had different attire. Um, but you go from then, and then they got allowed to have better showings in matches, even though they still lost. And then, so there was that kind of progression where they were just getting to look better and better, and then they finally started winning, and it paid off. Um, so I really just hope these guys have the titles for a while and don't just sort of randomly, out of nowhere, drop them or get squashed and lose or something like that, because that would be really fucking annoying.
Yeah.
Um, so next up we had Ty Dillinger versus Jason Jordan. And I was kind of disappointed by this in that I thought it was actually going to be even, but then Jason Jordan basically just kicks the shit out of Ty Dillinger. So, but for anyone that hasn't followed NXT even sparringly and caught the right episode with these guys on it, there's pretty much always been an undercurrent in this of with Jason Jordan and Ty Dillinger where they were kind of forced together as a tag team from what I can recall. And they were basically just trying to one up each other, and it always led to them losing, from what I can gather. I don't think I've ever seen them win a tag match. And then Jordan just finally walked out on him last week or the week before, so it just kind of turned into a feud from there. And in a way, I kind of hope this keeps going, and it's not just, oh, we needed to write Ty Dillinger out, so we just had to. Well, we need to end this quick, so we just have Jason Jordan squash Ty Dillinger. And it's like, that seems a bit quick, and it just doesn't really seem satisfying when this has technically been. I guess not. It hasn't really been built up, but it's always been in place that they've never really liked each other. So, um, it seems like this should actually go somewhere because this isn't really a satisfying payoff.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was kind of like the introduction.
Mm,
I mean, they might have shown these guys on a previous episode, but like, I didn't really have any familiarity with either of them.
mm,
But it's one of NXT's biggest strengths and weaknesses at the same time is being a
yeah.
1 hour show.
Mm,
Um, because it's kind of like what a Triple H was saying about Brock on Stone Cold podcast there, where he's like, was it that one or Vince's? I don't remember. Either way, it was like they were saying about how you don't want to see him too much and blah, 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 blah. I find with NXT, like, they have so much good talent that an hour is not enough time to showcase everybody. So
right.
sometimes, like, they'll have, a feud going on for like a month or two, and you won't see some of these guys on the roster at all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of what I've found exciting about NXT over the past couple months, is just like I'll start, learning about these guys and familiarizing myself with them, and then all of a sudden somebody completely new appears.
Yeah.
And that's something that they're not doing with the main roster at all, because you just see the same people every single week.
Right.
So, I
Um,
mean, it's a bad thing just because, like, you want to see them, but it's a good thing because you want to see them.
I think they mainly rotate out because of how they tape it. So it's to give the guys a bit of rest time, or like why someone might open the show 1 week, because like I think that was like one thing, like Hideo and Tyler Breeze opened the show once, and for this one they're the main event. Um, yeah, I'm guessing that's pretty much it. And sometimes it benefits because they've got so many guys that rotating them out kind of helps keep it fresh. But at the same time, like I think they should, if they ever got more time, I'd say just an extra half hour, because a full 2 hours they'd probably try to cram too much.
Well,
So,
yeah, what I'd kind of like to see them do is maybe just have like on the network or just on WWE.com or whatever, run a dark match.
mm. Well, yeah, I'm
Um,
surprised they don't really do that. I think they might for the NXT Takeover things as the pre-show, but I think that's about it. Um, or like hell, I guess they could even make like sort of a, well, I would say a secondary NXT, but if
but I
anything,
mean,
that would,
like with
yeah.
with the way that they have their distribution methods now, with the network and with all the fucking stuff they put on WWE.com or on their YouTube channel, which
Hmm.
fucking floods my YouTube every single day. Like there's so many different ways that they could still be getting a little bit of these guys that you don't see as often.
Yeah.
So because I mean that's the thing. Like for everybody, every episode is somebody's first episode,
Mm.
and I don't even know the point I'm trying to make with that, but like it, I think having more accessibility and availability to all of these people would benefit everyone. The
Mm.
fans, the superstars, the people cutting the checks.
Yeah.
Um, because I mean, like NXT, like it's not just some like little indie promotion that nobody knows about. You know, like,
Right.
when people are at the shows, like, they're fucking passionate about what's going on.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like, even outside of that, like, when you see Adrian Neville on Raw last week, when he
Mm.
came out, he got a fucking pop.
uh,
So, like, it's not like people just don't know about these guys before they come up to the main roster.
mm,
Um, the more exposure they get is a better thing. And I mean, you don't need to add another hour or another half hour. Because, I mean, like I'm saying, they have so many different methods to do so that they
mm,
could throw out a dark match on their YouTube channel.
yeah.
Done.
Yeah. If anything, I also think something that I wanted to run by you, that I thought WWE should start doing is having a random, like, if it's feud related or not, just have two guys, or I don't know, like two guys, three, like six, four, whatever, from NXT, or like women, getting pay-per-view time. Like, to just have
Yes.
one match.
NXT should be the first match of every pay-per-view, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, just as a way to give them exposure, because like a lot of people, even if they have the network, they might not think NXT is worth looking into. If you give them pay-per-view exposure, there you go. Like a few times on Raw, they've had NXT guys on as like a one-off thing to promote an upcoming NXT Takeover event. Once they did Zayn and Neville versus Tyson Kidd and Tyler Breeze on Raw, just to promote um, NXT Takeover Fatal 4-Way. Um, so that could really work, but it'll just be a case of Triple H trying to actually make it happen.
Here's hoping. You got my support, Trip.
Anyway, the last match of the night is the match that this episode is named after, the 2 out of 3 falls match between Hideo Itami and Tyler Breeze. And
If I
this,
could say one word about this, it would be rushed.
yeah,
Like, a
yeah.
2 out of 3 falls match felt really fast.
Mm. And really, I think the easiest way to have made this better would just have not had like 3 matches. Have Ty Dillinger and Jason Jordan match, the match with Bailey and Emma, because those 2 matches actually had a point. Um, the tag match was fun, but it didn't really serve any purpose other than just kind of continuing to build up the tag champs, which is nice. But there was no storyline point to that match because they're going into a feud with Colin Cassidy and Enzo Amore. So, um, in that sense, that didn't really make sense. They could have just had like a segment with the tag champs getting in their face, which they've done previously before anyway, and they might have done on this episode. For all I know, I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that would have made a lot more sense. Just because, like, thinking about the previous episode, the one right before WrestleMania, where they had that Arnold, whatever it was.
Yeah.
um, there were only 2 matches that episode, but
Mm,
they were fucking fantastic.
mm,
And the last one was like 25 minutes long. Like, it was a long match. Because I had a
mm.
friend over and he was asking me about NXT and whatnot. And I was like, okay, watch this. And, yeah, it ended up going on for a while, but, I mean, he was impressed,
uh,
to
I
say the
think there
least.
was, I think there was 3 actually, because there was the the women's match, and there was two male singles matches as well, because there was Colin Cassidy versus
Oh, that's right.
Wesley Blake.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like those two were relatively quick, so they could give Alex Riley versus Owens some time.
But
Um,
yeah, just before we get to this last match again, just because you brought him up, I thought it was great seeing Alex Riley in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal at WrestleMania.
yeah,
Because
like
I
that's a
mean, I knew Hideo Itami had won a spot to be in it, but like, I don't know why Riley was there, and I don't care. It was awesome to see him representing.
yeah. Generally, the funny thing was to me, I hadn't caught up yet. Um, by WrestleMania, so because I only caught up in like the last couple of days. I basically set aside an entire day where I watched about 6 to 7 hours of NXT in a row, with a few breaks in between. So even though I started fairly early in the morning, it took me until like at some point as the sun had already gone down just to finish because I had breaks in between.
Day
Um,
well spent.
oh yeah. Um, so Alex Riley, when Cole brings up on the pre-show that Alex Riley had gotten back into wrestling recently, I'm like, wait, what? And then went back and watched that, and that was one of the best storylines I've seen WWE ever do. Like, holy crap, Riley, and like that's the most I've ever given a shit about Alex Riley, to be honest. So in a way, that was kind of disappointing to me, and I hope they actually keep doing stuff with him and this wasn't just like his way out of the company, because my God, give him another main roster run after he's like. I like the fact that they're keeping him there though, because it's a way of reintroducing him as a wrestler, I guess,
Yeah.
and then letting him work off some of that ring rust that he's accumulated over the last 2 years, and um, maybe get called up to the main roster and not be mishandled this time. um,
Well,
even
I
though I
mean
think it,
that's the thing that kind of worries me, just based on like how we were talking this week, with Adrian Neville getting called up to the main roster. Because I mean, me with my getting back into it newbiness, I'm just like, well, maybe it means good things for him, and you're like, I don't know about that.
right. It really just depends. Sadly, high flyers never really get handled all that well unless you're like Rey Mysterio. Um, like a few years, like let's say about 10 years ago, maybe you'd be fine, but now probably not so much. He'll be there as a novelty, which will be kind of sad. I hope they do something with him, but you never know.
And that's
Um,
sad, because I mean, like, just for me being a newbie, he felt like one of the cornerstones of NXT. Like, he was
yeah.
fucking great. And the
Oh
uh,
yeah.
the match he had with Finn Balor, oh my
Mm,
God, was that good?
yeah. Um, what's really good was I've on and off seen him for like over a year now. Like I'd seen stuff of his like from Japan and that outside of uh, NXT, but like NXT Arrival, which was the first special event thing they did, which was about like February last year, was when he actually won the NXT title. So he had that for almost a year,
Oh
um,
wow.
and kind of almost turned heel, but not really. Um, and it was like sort of a I'll hold on to this by any means necessary kind of thing that he kind of got, but I think it was only really so he could drop the title to Sammy. But anyway, as far as the main event goes, 2 out of 3 falls. Yeah, it was. I was disappointed because the first falls happened too quickly, but that was because even the third fall, it was like it wasn't bad, but when you do the first 2 falls that quick, you have to make up for it by having a really amazing third fall that actually lasts a good while.
Yeah.
But when I looked
Yeah,
at
and
how
I mean,
much,
I'll be honest, I was just a little disappointed just because, I don't know, maybe I was expecting too much. I fucking love Tyler Breeze. I
mm,
think he's awesome. Um, to be honest, I think he's like the Shawn Michaels of today. With, shtick, his move set, he's very Shawn Michaels.
mm.
Um, with a selfie stick.
uh, um, yeah,
And
like,
Hideo's just fucking phenomenal.
oh
So I mean,
yeah,
I was going into this expecting a modern day classic, I guess. And it
yeah,
was good, but I kind of feel like if it was just a one fall match, it would have been better.
yeah. Um, I think they basically just made it like that so they could add a gimmick to it and make it like a main event rather than just a random thing. But really, yeah, like either they should have had like a really quick first one and then 2 decent length second ones, or just had the third fall be really decent. If not, just make it a one full match. But I've seen this happen before. Um, I'm not so sure. Like, I forget if WWE does it so much, but like, there was once where TNA kind of pulled a similar thing where the first 2 falls were fairly quick, and then the third one, ironically, dragged out a bit long. I think that, or it was also over fairly quick. I forget. Uh, if anything, well, I guess if anything, the benefit is at least it wasn't like 2 straight falls in a row to one guy.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, that would have been quite annoying. If anything, I do like that even though it ended sort of suddenly, it was kind of a good kind of suddenly where it was a finisher happening out of nowhere, rather than like a roll up or something.
Yeah.
Where and like I must admit the thing I liked going into this match is I had no idea who was gonna win because it really could have gone either way, and that's what I like because they've been building up Hideo a lot, so you could think, well, yeah, he could win, but then Tyler Breeze gets a win over him, normal in like a normal singles match. So it's like, well, okay, they're starting to build Tyler Breeze up again. So it could have gone either way, which is what I love about matches like that, and like Finn Balor versus Adrian Neville at the last Takeover. It's just like they have a lot of matches where it really could go either way, and you have no idea who's gonna win.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess it's like as much as NXT is better than the main roster, I think that also kind of harms it a bit because you get your standards too high. So when stuff like this happens, it's like, ah, oh, damn it. We know they can do
Yeah, but
better
I
than
mean,
this.
like, I guess overall it just kind of ties into what we were saying at the top. Like, this whole episode kind of seemed a little too rushed and packed.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I get it, right? Like, just because from what you were saying about how, like, they tape however many episodes in advance, and I mean, they had WrestleMania, so I
Mm,
mean, and they had that Arnold Sports thing. So, like,
yeah.
next week is going to be what they're going to be showing for, like, all the WrestleMania Access stuff, which, why the
Mm.
fuck didn't they show that live?
Yeah. And the
Why
funny
not
thing,
show the
yeah,
tournament where Hideo gets into the Battle Royal before the Battle Royal?
exactly. Like, that does piss me off because it just shows how they're doing it wrong. In that, I'm pretty sure even what has happened is they've had an episode air of NXT where Cesaro faced Sami Zayn for the United States Championship. I'm pretty sure Cesaro had lost the title before that aired. So it was like, or like maybe they had to drag out his reign until like after that actually aired and then he lost it. But that's happened before. They've had continuity problems, and it's like, just tape it once a week. Like,
Yeah,
it.
and I mean, like, once again, you have the distribution methods. You can do this,
Exactly.
guys.
Yeah, it's like they don't have to. Yeah, like the only obligation they have now is basically to themselves. I mean, like there are some countries, like I think even in Australia, it still airs on TV. But like for the most part, it's like now that the network's here, they've probably just taken it off. If I was them, I would. Um, but you know, it's just. Mm. Oh god, they like yeah, like they could just do what they do with SmackDown, tape it days in advance rather than weeks in advance, because it'd be funny being in a live crowd for that, because you'd be there all day, or like maybe they like film an episode a day or something. I don't know. But you'd be there and it'd be like, oh, Sami Zayn is gone for a month. Really, he's just not there until the end of the schedule. uh,
Yeah, that's got to make things confusing for the announcers, too.
mm. Well,
Okay, we got
the
our little
one.
cheat sheet here of, okay, he's been gone for how long this episode?
um, what really annoyed me was the week before the Arnold thing, and they start doing the ads for it during NXT. They fucking use footage of Alex Riley that hasn't aired yet in that, and it's like, what? This hasn't happened. I almost thought I missed something, and then it actually comes up on the show, and I'm like, what the hell, guys? You should have like not used that promo for it until like the very end of the show. That was horrible planning. God, whoever made that mistake needs to get friggin' fired or something, or just punched in the face. Like, what the fuck? Um, but like, I guess to sum this episode up in like the grand scheme of things, it's unlike the main roster and like so Raw and SmackDown, like the main brands. NXT is worth waiting through the throwaway episodes, because there's usually either some gems in there, like as we said, the main event wasn't necessarily crap; it was just a bit rushed. Um, and like it's fine. You'll put up with these kinds of episodes for NXT, because then we get NXT takeovers and other stuff, and we'll end up with another one. Like, it's not like WWE where with Raw, like you see people bitch about how terrible one Raw was, and then just keep watching. With NXT, you'll be like, well, it can get better, so you'll
Well,
actually
yeah,
put
I
up
mean,
with
to
it.
be fair, like, this was really one of the first ones where I've started watching where I did feel like it was rushed. Like, most of them have 3 to 4 matches, are usually pretty well paced.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, with all the other shit that they have going on, I can see why they tried to cram a little bit more into this one.
Mm.
So, just one of those things. But yeah, I fully expect next week, like I said, is that behind the scenes of the Access stuff. So I guess
Yeah.
next week's not going to be a normal one. So I'm expecting things to get back to normal in 2 weeks.
um, which, yeah, I agree that really with that access stuff, they should have. Well, really, in a way, it's either that it should have been like aired before WrestleMania as like a special thing, like they usually do a special episode before takeovers, or it should have just like aired this week just gone. For me, anyway, it's this week just gone. Like the episode we're talking about now should be the access thing. So it's
Yeah,
like tune in to see how that happened and all the other stuff that happened, and then this episode this week, this episode coming that we're going to be talking about later in the week. Because anyway, like it's easy to like even though even though it sounds like I'm starting to seem a bit jaded, really it's not because it's just like with NXT I care more. So I'm more likely to just be disappointed in certain things because it's like, well, come on, you guys can do better than this. Um, but hopefully it all gets back to normal and as Troy said, about a fortnight. So just so we don't keep rambling on about other stuff, we'll pretty much just end it here. So next week, or I guess for me later this week, we'll be talking about the access stuff. So hopefully that's worth sitting through. At the very least, it's basically my guess just going to be exhibition matches, so it might be fine because there probably won't be any storyline stuff to have to keep track of.
either
So
way, I mean, like I guess that's a note I'll end on is that's the other thing that I enjoy about NXT as compared to the main roster is the storylines are simple. You know,
mm,
it's this guy did this. I want revenge. That's as far as it needs to go.
yeah,
You know, you're too happy. Slap. I want revenge. That's as far as it needs. Like, that's the story you're trying to tell.
right.
That's all I need.
Mm. So on that note, we'll end this here. We will see you next time for the next episode of the Ring of Fire Next Gen.